I don't worry too much about what other people think. When I'm in a social setting too long, it's like, oh my God, does my life make my ass look fat?
Right here. That's the camp I'm protecting.
At 61 years old, Sue Aikens has survived it all. Brutal Alaskan winters, life-threatening wildlife encounters, and over a decade as the breakout star of Life Below Zero. But behind the snow-covered landscape and camera-ready grit lies a side of Sue the public rarely sees. For years, she stayed quiet. But now, with nothing left to lose, Sue Aikens is finally revealing the names of the 6 Life Below Zero members she couldn't stand. These weren't small disagreements. These were bitter feuds, explosive behind-the-scenes clashes, and betrayals that nearly drove her off the show. You might think you know Life Below Zero, but after this, you'll never see it the same way again. Let's begin. Chip Hailstone. One of the earliest and most talked about tensions behind the scenes of Life Below Zero was between Sue Aikens and Chip Hailstone. To viewers, Chip looked like the picture of an Alaskan survivalist. Living in Norvik with his wife Agnes and their kids, Chip always came across as a traditional family man, focused on hunting, fishing, and teaching his children how to live off the land. But when the cameras stopped rolling, things weren't nearly that simple. Sue's relationship with Chip has always been complicated, and some say the two barely spoke off camera. Their lives in Alaska couldn't have been more different. Sue has spent decades living completely alone at Kavik River Camp. Meanwhile, Chip's life revolved around his family. He had his wife Agnes by his side, their kids helping with daily tasks, and the community backing him up. For Sue, that kind of support was a luxury she never had, and that difference sparked quiet resentment that only grew over the years. But what really sent their relationship over the edge were Chip's legal troubles. In 2017, Chip was sentenced to serve time in jail after being found guilty of giving false information to the authorities. His legal battle wasn't some small misunderstanding. It made headlines and cast a shadow over the entire Life Below Zero brand. Sue, who prides herself on survival without shortcuts and building her life the hard way, reportedly couldn't stand the controversy. She felt it damaged the show's reputation and took attention away from the real challenges of living in the Alaskan wild. Even after Chip served his sentence, the tension didn't disappear. Sue is known for speaking her mind, and while she never went on record publicly trashing him, those who followed the show closely have seen the distance between them. On camera, their interactions were minimal at best. Off camera, it was even colder. Sources close to the production say Sue saw Chip's legal mess as a selfish distraction, the kind of drama that puts everyone's hard work at risk. And it wasn't just about one court case. Sue and Chip's entire survival philosophies clashed. Over time, those differences turned into quiet tension that never really healed. But the next person on this list was the one she couldn't stand working with behind the cameras. Agnes Hailstone. If you followed Life Below Zero long enough, you've probably noticed something odd. Sue Aikens and Agnes Hailstone almost never share meaningful screen time. It's not just a coincidence, and for fans who've been paying attention, it's a quiet sign of tension between the two of them. On the surface, Agnes Hailstone represents the heart of traditional Alaskan survival. Raised with generations of knowledge, she's passed down ancient hunting, fishing, and survival techniques to her children. Her quiet, steady presence on the show is all about family, heritage, and community. But Sue was a lone wolf. She's faced polar bears, violent storms, even nearly lost her life to a bear attack, all without a support system. That extreme independence shaped Sue's identity and created the first cracks in her relationship with Agnes. Behind the cameras, those differences reportedly turned into resentment. Sue built her reputation the hard way, surviving on pure toughness. Meanwhile, the Hailstone family filmed together, often showing a more group-oriented survival lifestyle. Some fans started noticing that the Hailstone storylines, especially those highlighting their cultural traditions, seemed to get more attention from producers than Sue's raw, unfiltered survival at Kavik. According to insiders, Sue didn't hide her frustration. She believed the producers were favoring certain cast members, downplaying the brutal realities she faced alone at Kavik. It wasn't about jealousy. it was about respect. Sue fought tooth and nail to survive, and she expected that story to be front, and when it wasn't, the quiet distance between her and Agnes only grew wider. It also didn't help that Agnes's husband, Chip Hailstone, brought legal drama to the show's doorstep. Even though Agnes wasn't directly involved, Sue reportedly couldn't look past the damage. For someone who's always worked to keep her life controversy-free, that kind of scandal was hard to ignore. And when Sue feels disrespected, she doesn't just brush it off. Her blunt personality makes it nearly impossible to patch things up. Even today, you'll rarely see Sue and Agnes interacting unless the cameras absolutely require it. Their relationship isn't about loud arguments or public feuds. It's about quiet, cold tension that never really ended. But while things stayed icy with Agnes, Sue's next clash wasn't subtle at all. It was a full-on, behind-the-scenes rivalry that fans picked up on fast, and it changed the mood on set for good. Glenn Villeneuve. When it comes to life in the Alaskan wilderness, some people survive by choice, and others survive because they have no other option. That difference might explain why Sue Aikens and Glenn Villeneuve never saw eye to eye. On the surface, Glenn was the picture of a lone survivalist. Living over 60 miles north of the Arctic Circle, he built a life for himself with nothing but basic tools, old-school hunting skills, and a deep knowledge of the land. To viewers, Glenn seemed like one of the toughest cast members on Life Below Zero. But behind the cameras, Sue wasn't convinced, and it didn't take long for her to size Glenn up. Sue's life at Kavik River Camp is brutal beyond words. For decades, she's lived alone, operating a remote fuel station that has nearly frozen her to death and patched up her own wounds with no one there to help. To Sue, that's real survival. It's not scripted. It's raw, ugly, and unforgiving. And that's where the tension with Glenn started. Sue reportedly felt that Glenn's portrayal on the show was polished compared to the brutal reality she faced every single day. Fans who followed the show closely noticed the difference. Glenn's segments often highlighted his quiet moments in the wilderness, his tracking skills, and his ability to live off the grid. But Sue's segments were about battling injuries, dealing with life-threatening weather, and keeping a remote business running completely alone. Behind the scenes, that difference in lifestyles created distance. Some fans believe Sue quietly questioned Glenn's experience, wondering if he was truly prepared for the harshest conditions Alaska had to offer, or if the cameras were making him look tougher than he really was. It wasn't just personality clashes. There were whispers of real tension during filming. Glenn, known for his quiet, independent nature, reportedly didn't mix well with Sue's attitude. Their survival methods were far apart. By 2019, Glenn quietly left the show. The official reason? He wanted to focus on his family, but longtime viewers weren't convinced by the easy explanation. Rumors swirled that Sue's outspoken criticism played a major role in his exit, and after Glenn left, the tension on set seemed to cool down. Glenn wasn't the last person to clash with Sue. The next name on her list, a young, ambitious member whose rising fame sparked even more drama in Alaska's frozen wild: Jesse Holmes. If there's one thing Sue Aikens can spot a mile away, it's someone trying to climb the ladder too fast. That's exactly why her tension with Jesse Holmes didn't take long to boil over behind the scenes of Life Below Zero. When Jesse first joined the show, he was introduced as the young, determined newcomer ready to prove himself in the unforgiving Alaskan wild. With his sled dog team by his side and a fearless attitude, Jesse quickly became a fan favorite, but not everyone was impressed. Sue Aikens has built her life through pure grit. Sue's experience wasn't learned overnight, it was earned through decades of brutal, unforgiving survival. That's why when Jesse's popularity started skyrocketing, Sue reportedly kept her distance. Jesse's rise to fame came fast. His scenes were filled with high-speed dog sledding and impressive hunts. Fans loved his energy and confidence, but some say that same energy didn't sit well with the veteran cast members, especially Sue. She's never been the type to sugarcoat what life in the wild really looks like. So watching Jesse's segments turn him into one of the show's breakout stars reportedly sparked frustration. To Sue, surviving the Alaskan frontier isn't a TV role, it's life or death. And building a reputation in Alaska takes more than a few dog sled runs and flashy scenes. The difference in their survival styles only fueled the quiet rivalry. While Jesse focused on speed and physical endurance, Sue remained anchored in raw, isolated living. Jesse's life may have looked exciting, but in Sue's eyes, it wasn't the same brutal fight for survival she faced alone at Kavik. Viewers noticed the divide. Jesse and Sue rarely appeared together, and when they did, the tension was impossible to miss. Insiders close to production say Sue questioned whether Jesse understood the full risks or if he was chasing the fame that came with the show. While Jesse embraced the spotlight and turned his dog sledding lifestyle into his identity, Sue stayed focused on the harsh, unfiltered reality of life in the wild. But Jesse wasn't the last person to make Sue's list. The next name? A cast member whose off-camera reputation caused drama from day one and whose relationship with Sue still gets fans talking. Andy Bassich. In the frozen wild of Alaska, survival isn't just about battling snowstorms and predators. It's about knowing who you can trust. And for Sue Aikens, Andy Bassich was never one of those people. Their tension wasn't loud or public, but behind the scenes of Life Below Zero, their quiet feuds simmered for years, turning the already harsh environment even colder. Andy Bassich built his life on the Yukon River, where he ran a homestead, raised sled dogs, and lived by his own rules. On camera, he looked like the picture of Alaskan toughness, but off camera, Andy carried a reputation that made plenty of people uncomfortable. Stories circulated about his harsh behavior, controlling personality, and the way he treated people around him. Sue Aikens isn't one to stay silent when it comes to disrespect. Her entire life has been built on raw independence. So when it came to Andy, their differences clashed immediately. Insiders from the production say that Sue always kept her distance from Andy, and it wasn't hard to see why. While Andy's lifestyle looked rugged, Sue reportedly questioned whether his survival methods and his behavior toward others lined up with what true off-grid living demands. Sue and Andy rarely shared scenes, and when they did, their conversations were brutal and uncomfortable. In 2018, Andy's time on the show took a sharp turn after he suffered a severe hip injury that forced him to leave the series for medical treatment. While some fans wished him a quick recovery, others speculated that the break only deepened the existing cracks between him and his castmates. When Andy returned to Life Below Zero with a new partner, the mood among the cast, especially Sue, stayed distant. For Sue Aikens, surviving in Alaska has always been about the people around her. And Andy Bassich? He was one person Sue was more than happy to keep him far away from her life at Kavik. Sue Aikens has proven that surviving in Alaska takes more than tough talk. It takes grit, skill, and the kind of determination most people can't even imagine. For decades, she's battled the raw, unforgiving wilderness alone. But while the outside world often focuses on the blizzards and brutal cold, what many fans don't realize is that surviving Life Below Zero wasn't just about nature. It was also about surviving the people. Over the years, Sue has dealt with her fair share of tension and drama with the cast of Life Below Zero. These weren't always big televised arguments or explosive confrontations. Most of the time, it was the quiet tension bulliding beneath the surface. From the start, Sue stood apart from the others. Her quiet feud with Chip and Agnes Hailstone proved how survival philosophies can clash even in the most remote corners of the world. With Glenn Villeneuve, the tension ran deeper. His lifestyle may have impressed viewers, but Sue reportedly questioned whether he was truly prepared for Alaska's harshest realities. Then came the new generation, and with it, more complications. Jesse Holmes brought youth, ambition, and rising popularity, but Sue saw through the surface. And Andy Bassich? His off-camera reputation spoke for itself. His harshness, his controlling behavior, and the controversy surrounding him only deepened the cracks between him and Sue. Their cold, distant interactions were impossible to ignore. Through it all, Sue stayed focused on what she does best, surviving the egos, the betrayals, and the quiet battles that happen when cameras stop rolling. Alaska is dangerous, but for Sue, the real storm has always been the people standing beside her. And even now, as the seasons pass and new faces join the show, one thing is certain: Sue Aikens isn't just surviving Life Below Zero, she's outlasting everyone, one icy rivalry at a time. Out here, the wild might freeze you to the bone, but it's the people who'll really leave you cold. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for further updates, and click the next video on screen now for another interesting story.